It's the Big Picture Podcast with Gus and Dominic Pfister.
Hello, my name is Dominic Pfister.
And I'm Gus Pfister.
And welcome back for episode 7 of the Big Picture Podcast, brought to you by Mellow Subs on 242 Genesee Street in Utica, New York. If you missed us last week, you can find us on our YouTube channel, the link to which can be found on our Twitter page at podcast_picture, on our Facebook and Instagram accounts, Big Picture Sports. And additionally, we can now be streamed on platforms such as SoundCloud, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, name it, we're out there.
We're out there. We're getting some more new listeners. It's always good.
It's all thanks to the listeners that we're out there.
All the support's unbelievable.
We do it for the listeners.
Yeah, we do it for the fans.
We do it for you guys.
This week we're talking coaches. We've talked about all sorts of athletes, platforms last week, how sports impact tragedy in society. So why not start talking about the coaches?
How can we talk about the impact that sports have in society when we don't talk about the people that impact the athletes who impact the sports, who impact society?
It's all domino effect. Everything's going down. Everything's going down. We're going to be talking about the role of the coach, players versus the coach, their jobs, the pressures that come with coaching, and who needs who more, essentially, and why are some coaches more successful than others?
Well, sports coaches assist athletes in developing to their full potential. They are responsible for training athletes at a sport, analyzing their performances, instructing in relevant skills, and providing encouragement. But as a coach, you're not just a trainer. You're a mentor. You're a molder of man, essentially, or molder of women.
Yes.
Women as well.
Yeah, sports are a medium that teach a lot of lessons that go beyond the field or off the field. They're lessons that could be taught about life, a lot of them. These lessons that are learned in sport can be transferred to other areas. They can be in business, in school, everyday life. They're all out there for us to, take and build off these experiences. So they're really big contributor and meaningful to society in that manner. But anyone who's ever had a bad coach or someone they didn't get along with, it could really ruin the experience. So the role of the coach is essentially to help these athletes learn about these lessons in life. Each coach may teach a very different lesson, might show different strategies to get to this lesson, but at the core, I would say that most coaches have that goal in mind in this is where we want to be, this is how we're going to get there. You hear that phrase a lot. And although they don't teach the same lessons, they are all invested in the athletes and making them learn.
I believe they have to build emotional bonds with their athletes. There's a significant amount of research about the importance of an effective coach-athlete relationship. Effective relationships are underpinned with trust and respect, and trust and respect over time, particularly trust. We can argue about the definition of talent, but going back to the relationship with coaches and players, there's a statistic about the NFL, the top 5% of college football programs that send players to the NFL, and the top 5% of which those said athletes who go to the NFL get arrested. There was a number of schools. The number one school that had the most players get arrested was West Virginia with 26. In second place was USC with 23. And in third place was the Ohio State with 22. Among the many other schools on that list, the one school that I did not see that produces arguably more NFL players than any other school was Alabama. And that is a true testament to Nick Saban.
Yeah, we hear over and over again the kind of leader and motivator that Nick Saban is. He's one of the most popular people in the whole state of Alabama. He is a really, like you said, a molder of his players. He's a big lead-by-example guy. And everything he does is about giving his all to the players so he can get a lot in return. And over time, we've seen players like Baker Mayfield get in trouble, have some off-the-field issues in college. And Johnny Manziel, we've seen his struggles. But we've never really seen Nick Saban have to react to these. He's never really had players get involved in that kind of behavior. So it really is a testament to what he is off the field as a person.
You could say whatever you want about Nick Saban, but the guy is good at his job. And they win a significant amount. But what's more important, arguably, is that off the field, he has gentlemen. He has people who are going to go out and impact society in positive ways.
There's a reason that he has created arguably the most dominant college football program in the country, probably of all time. Between him and Bear Bryant, I mean, the legacy that goes on there, they have just been a dominant winning program. And a lot of that is because of the leadership. You have a guy like Nick Saban who's so fiercely intense and a really kind of a strange guy. He doesn't text. He only calls his players. He doesn't email. All of his recruiting is either done in person or on the phone where he is talking to someone, which is vastly different from how players are being found with social media now. So he's a real old school guy, and him and Belichick are great friends off the field, and you could see why they run very similar tight ship programs.
And that goes back to the relationship with the player. There's nothing, arguably, other than the handwritten letter, what is more personal than a phone call when you're trying to connect with somebody? So when you're talking about trust between a coach and an athlete, a phone call from Nick Saban is going to mean more than a you up text from from a community college coach or something of the sort.
I remember stories of Bo Jackson in his ESPN 30 for 30 that when he got a call from Bear Bryant, people from his neighborhood would come and look at the phone because they just wanted to see the kind of history that was attached to that phone call. And that is something that we've kind of seen a lot of, it's gone away from that with social media. A lot of players are getting found, they're sending in tape, and it's all kind of email communication. So to see him go back to the basics, essentially, and work with that form of recruiting is very different. And that comes a lot with coaching pressure.
Yeah, Gus. Coaching, talk about shoes to fill. When you're an athlete, they tell you that when you're done playing, when it's time to hang up that jersey, you got to leave that thing in a better place than you found it, right? Well, when you're Nick Saban and you're walking into the Alabama football office, or if you're Brian Kelly at the head coach of Notre Dame, and you're walking to that office, you're passing these pictures of Lou Holtz, you're passing pictures of Bear Bryant, of rings, of national championships, of history, of legacy that you have to uphold. Those are pressures that no college athlete has to face.
No way. And over time, the role of a coach is just so dramatically different. At the core are the values of leadership and things we talked about earlier, molding men, molding young girls and women. But at the same time, over time, when you start as a Little League baseball coach or something, you're there to have fun. You're here for kids to play, get out, meet each other, form friendships. And as you escalate throughout the different levels, the position itself changes dramatically. High school, you're there, you want to keep them interested. You want to see some kids have dreams to play above a high school level. Some people are very content with just playing high school level. So once you get to college, that's when recruiting comes in. And from your background, I'm sure you could talk about recruiting and how it impacted you.
It's an extremely stressful time for athletes who aren't necessarily 5- and 4-star recruits, but your small town kids who are looking for their senior year to really make an impact and land their dream of getting a college scholarship or just playing in college at the Division II or III level. They need that senior year. They need that mentorship along the way. The first phone call that many college coaches make is to the high school coach, because that is going to be your true indicator of what the student athlete is like. Nobody knows that person better than their high school coach. From a college coach standpoint, nobody's going to give you better information about your recruit than their high school coach.
And you're looking into the type of person they are, not just what they do on the field. You want to know academically what their grades are like. You want to know what they're like in the classroom. Are they hardworking? Are they lazy? Do they goof off a lot? A lot more goes into recruiting than just the product on the field. And that's where college coaches really separate themselves, because in college, if you don't win games, you're out. It is a completely different system. Once you hit that high level football, basketball, baseball, whatever level you're at, any sport, it's all about winning. That is the backbone of their job.
There's a great story about Lou Holtz. He came into somewhat of a struggling Notre Dame football program at the time, and he had a winning season. And they said, "That's great, coach, but we need to win more." So he came back, and he won 10 games. And they said, "That's great, coach, but we need to win the national championship." So he came back in his third season and he won the national championship. And they said, "That's great, coach, but we need to win by big scores." So the bar is nobody's ever satisfied when you're the coach.
Never.
Nobody's ever satisfied.
You're trying to please alumni, boosters, faculty, staff, players. You're trying to always be that top dog like in Alabama is. So with all that pressure that's coming down on you from a monetary standpoint, there's also the community standpoint. College football especially, you see College Game Day and how those kind of local businesses, they rally around their teams, they rally around the community because it's what they thrive off of. So not only are you trying to please players, TV ratings, all that, you need to please your local community. You need to sell yourself on them as well because if you have their support, that means a lot. That's a big stepping stone in the job.
Sports bring together communities like no other events, really. Nobody gets really super excited when there's a concert in town. Yeah, some, local restaurants will get impacted. But when there's a football game or when College Game Day is in your town on a Saturday afternoon, there's nothing quite like everybody coming together and, going to a restaurant before tailgating in the parking lot, going to the local grocery store and picking up some hot dogs or, some waters and sodas, drink in the parking lot.
It's a very pure event and something that is very beneficial to these communities and these universities because Alabama, if you think about it, the amount of money they bring in from a football program, they pay all the expenses of that university and some. So not only, that's kind of goes with why do these coaches get paid so much? Because of the role they have in their communities. They're really escalating everyone around them.
They're not getting paid to just coach a football game. That job doesn't start and end on Saturday. That job starts from and it never ends. Never ends. When that season ends, that job still goes.
It's a whole new season.
You're recruiting, you're watching film, you're reaching out to alumni, you're on the road, you're still impacting your community. I've played college football for 4 years. We were always on the road going to local elementary schools. We were volunteering. We were helping I went to Ithaca College, go Bombers, and we would help. The football team would be there early in the summer, and every year we would help the incoming freshmen move into their dorms. We were helping. No other sport was doing that. We were there early, and we were helping everybody move in. When you're on the football team, you're really impacting. You're not just training. You're not just a player. You're not just a student athlete, but you're impacting your local community, and people kind of look towards the football team to, make an impact. It's a trickle down.
It's all trickle down, and we even see it a lot in business. And there's some really interesting stats about how coaching really helps Fortune 500 companies in business outside of sports. I mean, there's a study that says that coaching leads to an increase of 88% in productivity versus 23% from just training alone. That's a monumental increase. 74% of leading companies say that coaching is the most important role in their front sales management positions. So from sports to everyday life in business, you need some mentor aspect. You need someone there to hold you accountable so you can hold yourself accountable. You need that higher power, higher level, but you need them to be trustworthy, dependable. You need someone that you can look after because another, very interesting stat is 23% of people leave jobs because of their boss. If they don't have a solid foundation, there's no need to stay.
If you don't have a good coach, if you don't like playing for your coach, you're out of there.
It's a very impactful position that kind of gets undervalued, not only in sports, but in a lot of communities.
But Gus, the more we talk about sports and the more we talk about society, the less of a divide there is between the two, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it kind of leads us to the question of who needs who more. Because we talk historically, a question that gets brought up is, Does Tom Brady need Belichick, or does Belichick need Brady?
We'll find out this year.
Yeah, it's an ongoing debate that just won't end. And maybe it will provide answers this year, but maybe it won't. And a big aspect about that is, in my opinion, it's the players who need the coach more. Because a coach can win off of talent. You could do a lot of things to win games. There's a lot of strategy involved in coaching, obviously. A lot of practices and techniques that aren't really talked about or studied. But if there's no trust, no initial relationship factor, that's what the team's based off of. It's based off that relationship. So without that, there is no wins. There's no victories. There's no alumni. There's no communities, because you need that aspect. You need that leadership.
I completely agree that the kids need the coach. And if you look at it on a smaller scale, not at the major college, not at the NFL level, but let's talk about Little League baseball. These kids are building friendships, and the job of the coach is to make them have fun, win a few games, right? And most importantly, build their relationships off the field rather than on the field, teach the game of baseball. Where we see trouble, and I'm sure every community has one or two or three or four coaches that think that they're coaching Major League Baseball and are kind of living vicariously, need the kids. And the coaches need the kids more than the kids end up needing the coach, which is a negative effect. You get there's some Little League coaches that are calculating wins above replacement or WHIP or ERAs, that, stats that these kids don't even understand. And you drive kids away from the game, and you hurt relationships. And when a coach needs the players more, there's a negative impact overall.
Inherently in sports, there's always going to be a winner and a loser. It's just how it is. And based off that point, at that young age, you're not supposed to be worried about winning. I mean, besides friend groups, who's going to really care that you won a Little League championship,
A little competitive edge is fine.
Yes.
That's fun.
Absolutely. I would never discourage a competitive edge, but it's very different from a Little League modified JV varsity level than it is for professional and college football is essentially professional. College basketball, it's the NCAA keeps it away from being fully professional, but in the end, it is run as a business, and money is the driving factor behind that.
Well, in basketball, they stay for a year. It's really just a middle ground where they can train for a year, get out, and go to the NBA. College baseball is pretty much AAA ball. Dansby Swanson played at the College World Series. In the fall, he's playing in the World Series.
It's dominating behaviors, and it's the winning culture that is brought up from these players. And there's a lot of information about how immensely beneficial coaching is for childhood development, and how big of a role sports play in children developing friendships, relationships, self-confidence, all that stuff. But leadership is at the core of that conversation. With great coaches come great teams. With great relationships come great outcomes. So investing time in coaches investing time in their athletes, and they're learning together. They're learning a lot of aspects about life together that can be taken off the field.
Yeah, and you see that not only in sports, not only on the field, but like we talked about earlier, great leadership can take a business to the top. Poor leadership can bankrupt a business.
Absolutely. It's a powerful dynamic that I believe is very underappreciated within sports, is the role of the coach. It's very underappreciated. It's not studied enough. Why do people like Belichick and Saban succeed more? Is it because of their personalities? Is it because of their preparation? It's ongoing questions that I wish there were more answers to.
I think it's their values. Belichick. You could look at Belichick and Saban and take their values, their virtues, their priorities, most importantly, their priorities, and apply it to just about anything, and you'll be successful in that field. If I'm a stock person, or if I'm in any other field and I have hard work, dedication, preparation, discipline, I'm going to succeed. It doesn't have to be football. It doesn't have to be sport. You take those values that make Belichick and Saban and their players so good, apply it to anything else. If I'm a teacher, if I'm a student, anything, you'll succeed more so than if you are just going through the motions, putting in a little work, doing some little things, but not quite to the Saban or Belichick level. You won't have that success. Their blueprint that they've set, their examples that they've set for their players are not just for their respective players, but they could be for society as a whole.
Yeah, and we talk about, Belichick, especially, and Saban. They're very rooted in military background, something that gets brought up on this show a lot. We talked about Tiger Woods' military background, Michael Jordan's brother going into the military, and those values and core teachings are a lot that come with their leadership experience and their coaching abilities. And the big picture for me is we need good coaches, because when we have good coaches, we have good teams, we have good leadership, we have good values, we learn more about ourselves through sports, through these losses, through these wins. There's a lot to be learned more than X's and O's in football. There's a lot to be learned about strategy in baseball and how each pitch is vastly different and the different outcomes that can come off of each pitch. So we need these people in our lives to be someone we could lean on, someone to trust outside of, family and friends. We need these people to be beneficial leaders in communities.
What a great picture we just painted, Gus. Until next time, I'm Dominic.
And I'm Gus Pfister.
We'll see you next week.
It's the Big Picture Podcast with Gus and Dominic Pfister.